Nightcast. Stephen Lloyd Gilbert brings you the current news from the world today and how it relates to Bible prophecy. Understanding the end-time events leading to the peaceful world tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Lloyd Gilbert.
Well, good evening, friends, and welcome to this March 26th, 2014 edition of Nightcast. Tonight, friends, we'll open up with a story that's related. We've been telling you about the derailed Chicago train. We've got some video footage, as you'll see in the background. Here comes the train. Boom! Up the escalator stairs. The video footage there that's appeared on YouTube, posted on YouTube, appears to show closed circuit television video of the moment a metro train derailed at Chicago's O'Hare International Airport in the United States. Early on Monday, the train came off the tracks, crossed a platform, and traveled partway up an escalator, as you just saw in this YouTube video, with no reported serious injuries. I have some more information on that for you. The operator of that Chicago train, which derailed on Monday, injuring 32 people, none seriously, the operator has said she fell asleep while on duty, according to federal officials. The unnamed woman, employed as an operator for 2 months, reportedly admitted it was not the first time she had dozed off on the job. The speeding metro train jumped its tracks at O'Hare International Airport and hurled up that escalator. None of the injuries at the busy airport were said to be serious. She did admit that she dozed off prior to entering the station. And I think did we mention to you, it's not the first time that happened. National Transportation Safety Board Inspector Ted Turpin said during a news conference on Wednesday that the woman often worked an erratic shift. She was reportedly disciplined in February after falling asleep on the job as her train partially missed a station. The woman is said to be cooperating with investigators. But friends, the man who initially began this program as its host after Ray Green, a salute to Ray Green in the Birmingham, Alabama area, who complained that brethren were not paying attention to world news as Jesus Christ instructed us to be doing. Watch world events and pray always. And be doing so, in part, to do your job, and that you may be accounted worthy to escape, Christ says in Luke 21, verse 36. And the man God used as the apostle, as the candlestick for the beginning of the Philadelphia era of his church, the 6th era of his church in the New Testament, has said to us that watching that we're supposed to do is watching world events, and that praying that we're supposed to do could include praying that we be accounted worthy. He said it's not only not wrong to ask that of God, please account me worthy, but it also is a good idea. It's wise to let God know you do want to be accounted worthy. Now that means you're saying, I'm going to submit to you, dear Father, and a good loving Father, as Hebrews 6 or Hebrews 12, one or the other, tells us that a loving Father, what father who loves his child will not discipline his child? Otherwise, the child's like a bastard. That's what God says in his words. That's not my language by myself. But I was going to tell you, the man who initially began this program, thanks to Ray Green in the Birmingham, Alabama area, complaining that brethren and the ministry too was not doing its job in watching world events daily, as we should be doing, as we were instructed to do, and to cry out before God, as Christ said in the model prayer, "Thy kingdom come." And Jesus Christ himself wept. You know, fellas, it's not wrong for a man to have tears and to weep and to cry about things. And one good way to have that in your spirit, to be weeping and crying about things, is to be watching world news. There'll be some events tonight that perhaps will help some of us to a little bit better put some fire into our prayers when we get to that part of the model prayer Christ gave us to pray, "Thy kingdom come." But the initial host of this program, Robert Collins, worked for over a decade. He worked for the railroads, and he told me some stories about how sometimes his supervisors would just ask him, and looking him in the face and looking him eyeball to eyeball, would ask him, "Did you go to sleep or doze off during this job any at all on Tuesday night, on Thursday night last week?" Sometimes they would just ask and be looking to see if the guy was going to be honest with them. And of course, if even in honesty, if they had admitted they had dozed off any, they would be highly reprimanded for dozing off on a job at the railroad. And it was this man's job to sit on a tower and watch for trains on the tracks and watch for potential danger on the track too, because people can come along and do things on the tracks that could derail a train that people are not supposed to do, and the people who watch for the railroads are supposed to be watching everything. And dozing on the job is just, working for a railroad line, that's just something that is not acceptable. The first time that woman dozed off, well, I'll just ask you, do you think that should have been dealt with where this problem that just occurred that injured 32 people and scared a bunch of people, I guess, as that train lunged up that escalator in the Chicago O'Hare Airport on Monday? You know, some jobs you cannot you got to come to work alert, and you can't doze off on those kind of jobs. All right, friends, let's go on with some more news from today. We're going to start with another couple of stories from the United States with some of the disasters that we've been seeing in the news of late. That fire that happened in Texas. We've got some video tonight showing a construction worker who was rescued from the burning building in Houston, Texas, moments before it collapsed. This footage that you'll see recorded by an eyewitness shows the construction worker man jumping from floor to floor before climbing onto a crane that was lifted up for him. He's then lowered to safety as the top of the roof of the property crashes down. He was not injured, but you might want to see this one.
Oh God, oh God, oh God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Oh! Oh my God.
Keep going, keep going.
Oh.
Look at the glass melting up there. On the window melting.
They need to get him. Oh God. Oh God. Get closer to him. He can jump from there. I mean, good grief.
Fucking, I'll be jumping, man.
They need to move that truck up. Oh my God.
I don't know why they're not evacuating this.
I think that we probably should be going.
It's time to evacuate.
Just jump for it, man.
Oh, thank Jesus. Thank you, God. Oh my God. Oh no, my God. Oh.
Okay, friends, thankfully the man was they got him down safely there. Amazing how people during a disaster think of and call on God. You know, whether they recognize the real and true God or just their own God or whatever. People during disasters, they really think of and mention and often mention God. Well, another disaster in the United States. U.S. authorities say they've located 10 more bodies in the area of Washington State that was devastated by a landslide on Saturday. That means so far, rescuers in the town of Oso have identified 24 people who died in the disaster, with more than 150 people still unaccounted for. David Willis reports from Washington.
Little by little, officials are getting a sense of what lies beneath the thick layer of mud that enveloped this picturesque corner of the American Northwest on Saturday. It's not a pretty picture. Such was the speed and ferocity of the mudslide that it appears many in Oso were unable to escape and ended up being buried alive.
We did recover 2 additional fatalities today. That brings our fatality rate to 16. We've located another 8 fatalities. However, we have not recovered those at this time.
Almost as troubling as the rising death toll, the revelation that a government scientist warned of a catastrophe of precisely this kind as long ago as 1999, yet still people were allowed to build homes here. Officials insist the mudslide was completely unforeseen and are suggesting that a small earthquake in the area a few days earlier could have been to blame. As the death toll rises here, officials are warning that the rescue and recovery operation could be a long one. They vowed to find all the victims, but concede that could take weeks, if not months. David Willis, BBC News, in Washington State.
Thank you, David. Friends, President Obama has arrived in Brussels, where he'll meet leaders of the European Union and NATO to discuss the crisis in Ukraine and other transatlantic issues. He's also expected to make a major policy speech. Chris Morris reports from Brussels.
Well, this trip has been turned on its head, really. I mean, even a month ago, it was clearly going to be about free trade. It was going to be about easing over European concern about the allegations of NSA spying on EU allies. But the bewildering speed of what's happened in Crimea has completely rewritten the script. It will be dominated by Russia and Ukraine. There will be a symbolic visit to a World War I cemetery in Flanders, where President Obama will lay a wreath. But the core of this visit will be those meetings with EU and NATO leaders, and then a speech in which he will take the opportunity to remind everyone of the importance for the United States of European security, and the fact that really security is still at the heart of the transatlantic relationship.
And Chris, we heard from President Obama, of course, yesterday when he was addressing The Hague, and he made allusions to some stronger sanctions that could yet come from America towards Russia with regards to events in Ukraine. Do you think we'll hear anything more specifically on that?
Well, that's going to be one of the tricky things, I think, because part of the purpose now is a defiant display of transatlantic unity, and yet there is no real unity on how tough and when further sanctions should be imposed, because there are clearly some countries in Europe who want to go at a slower pace on that front than the United States. I think what we will hear about, though, is a longer-term response, and that is, how do you wean Europe off its dependence on Russian gas? If people didn't realise it before, it's been shown very clearly in the last few weeks that that is a major strategic weakness. And one of the things that will be discussed now and over the next couple of years is how processes can be put in place to ensure that American gas can be exported to Europe and try and change the balance of Europe's energy supply. I think that's going to be a really big focus for US-European relations over the next couple of years.
Friends, one thing for certain, tensions are high between the West and Russia after Ukraine's southern peninsula of Crimea was annexed by Russian forces earlier this month. In this update, Matthew Price reports from Brussels.
The president swept into what some here call the capital of Europe. Down streets closed to the rush hour traffic and into the headquarters of the European Union. Last year, he wouldn't have faced such a warm welcome, with allegations swirling that American spies had tapped phone calls made in this very building. This year, they are united against Russia's takeover of Crimea.
If Russia continues on its current course, however, the isolation will deepen. Sanctions will increase, and there will be growing consequences for the Russian economy. And this reflects the enduring commitment to the goal that has brought Europe and the United States together for decades. A Europe that is whole and free and at peace.
There were no new sanctions, no new threats to Russia's President Putin. But a consensus is developing that Europe needs to reduce the amount of gas it gets from Russia, and the US will help it do so.
Certainly good news that the United States have this policy of putting the gas from shale gas in the international market, because countries like the European countries and others will be less dependent on energy coming from, let's say, difficult spots.
Once it was through war, not energy diversification, that Europe settled its differences. 100 years after Europe's Great War began, President Obama and the Belgian King remembered their fellow countrymen who died fighting here.
Change opens the door.
And so, with the names of the fallen etched into his mind, President Obama told an audience in Brussels this evening why he believes Russia's Ukraine adventure cannot go unpunished. And he warned of the consequences of complacency.
Our own borders are not threatened by Russia's annexation. But that kind of casual indifference would ignore the lessons that are written in the cemeteries of this continent. It would allow the old way of doing things to regain a foothold in this young century.
The transatlantic bonds.
With that in mind, the President met the head of NATO. The US has sent more fighter jets to help the alliance patrol the skies above Eastern Europe. More will be done to assure those countries that feel threatened by Russia that they are protected. Matthew Price, BBC News, Brussels.
Friends, the search for the missing flight MH370 resumed today after weather conditions on the Indian Ocean improved. Much of the operation is being run from Fremantle Port in the Australian city of Perth, with a key piece of kit from the U.S. expected to arrive later. John Donison reports from the port.
This is Fremantle Port just outside Perth, and it's here that at least some of the recovery operation is likely to be based. We had the Navy ship, the HMAS Success, set off from here a few days ago. That is now at the search scene, as are a number of Chinese ships. Now, you really get a sense of just how remote we are here. Perth, already one of the most remote cities in the world, and the search area is some 2,500 kilometres from where we are now. Now, we've got a key bit of kit being flown in by the Americans today, something known as a towed ping locator. Now, essentially what that will be used for is to try and find the plane's missing black box flight recorder. What happens is a ship tows this bit of kit through the water, and it's able to pick up any pings or signals sent out by the black box. Now, there are a few problems with that. One, The black box flight recorder is only able to send out these pings for around 30 days. That's the amount of battery life we have. We're already on day 18, so there's a bit of time pressure. Secondly, the black box might have been damaged, so it's not able to send out anything at all. And thirdly, you can only use this ping locator when you have a pretty good idea exactly where the plane crashed. And at the moment, we just don't know that. And I think basically this recovery operation could take months, if not years.
Friends, North Korea is in the news today. North Korea has test-fired what appears to be 2 medium-range ballistic missiles. Though there have been dozens of short-range missile launches by North Korea, this is the first time in about 5 years that missiles of this type have been test-fired.
Well, the missiles were launched just hours after President Obama met with the leaders of South Korea and Japan in The Hague to discuss the threat of North Korea's nuclear weapons program. The test is also being accepted as an apparent protest to ongoing military exercises between South Korea and the United States.
So do we know what the North wants out of this?
Well, in the past several weeks, there have been dozens of short-range missile launches by the North, but this is the first time in nearly 5 years since a Rodong-class missile has been test-fired. With a range of over 1,000 kilometers, the medium-range missiles could reach parts of Japan. At the moment, the government officials here, various analysts, are trying to grasp why the North Korea is doing this and why it is upping the ante at the moment. And the government here has expressed strong protests, saying that already this has been in breach of the UN Security Council resolutions that bans any ballistic missile tests from North Korea.
And friends, in a way related to that story, at least as far as firing off a missile, but this one of a different type. A Soyuz spacecraft has been launched in Kazakhstan bound for the International Space Station. Astronauts Steve Swanson and cosmonauts Alexander Shvartsev and Oleg Artemyev are safely in orbit.
Second umbilical power
10,
separate.
9, 8, 7, 6,
Engine
5,
pumps at
4,
flight speed.
3, 2,
And they're
1. Ignition. And we have a liftoff. Liftoff of Steve Swanson, Oleg Artemyev, and Alexander Shvartsev on a 6-hour journey to the International Space Station. The Soyuz lights up the night sky there at the Baikonur Cosmodrome. Good first stage performance. The Soyuz delivering a total of 466 tons of thrust from its 4 boosters and single engine. The first stage of the Soyuz measures 68 feet in length and 24 feet in diameter. It is burning liquid fuel for the first 1 minute and 58 seconds of the flight.
40 seconds flight nominal.
The launch shroud has now been jettisoned. The rocket's altitude is now 48 miles high. As we look live on board, there's Alexander Shvartsev
Shroud jettison.
going low tech with that sticky as in his hand. That's what he's using to input commands into the Soyuz's computer. There on the right is Oleg Artemyev. Just to the left, out of view, is NASA astronaut Steve Swanson. There he is.
We're going to come on.
Okay, friends, for the past couple of days, Egypt has been in the news with their judges issuing death sentences to over 500 people on Monday, over 600 people yesterday. Today in the news, Orla Gurin will be reporting as to how Field Marshal Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has announced that he has resigned as Egypt's military chief in order to stand for the presidency.
An announcement that will have surprised absolutely no one. State TV was carefully building up the tension this evening, abandoning its usual programming, running patriotic music, showing footage of military daring do, and running clips of previous comments by Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Now, he appeared to make his nationwide address in army uniform, as he said, for the last time after 44 years. He said he was giving up his uniform in order to defend the country. He said he felt he was being assigned to a new mission, and he also emphasised that he was bowing to the will of the people. Now, this is something we have heard him say repeatedly in recent weeks and months, that he would not ignore the call of the people. But he also talked about the difficulties ahead. He said Egypt faced political, social and economic problems. He spoke about the millions of unemployed, the millions affected by disease. He said all of these things were unacceptable. He said Egyptians deserved a better life, but he also said he wouldn't be able to perform miracles. Now, he said all of this very much with the institutions of state behind him, still in the uniform, broadcasting live on state TV. And it gives you a taste of how much the institutions of state are behind him. He may be officially stepping out of the military, giving up his rank and his uniform. But once again, Egyptians look poised to have another leader who comes from the ranks of the military, just 3 years after the revolution which overthrew Hosni Mubarak and which was supposed to bring decades of military rule to an end.
Friends, in our last story tonight, I want to bring up our chart from Revelation for just a moment and mention the fourth seal, which if you look at our chart, count over to the fourth column, you see the number 4, you see the pale green color there. The book of Revelation in chapter 6 depicts this fourth seal as a pale horse whose rider is named Death, and alongside whom Hades, hell, the grave, rides. Jesus Christ described the attributes, the characteristics, the doings of this horse in 3 different terms. Loimus, meaning disease epidemics, pestilence, the plagues of Egypt. Seismus, meaning seismic activity, commotions in the air such as gale force winds of all kinds, commotions on the ground such as earthquakes and other seismic conditions, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, wildfires, floods, etc. And the third thing Jesus Christ described under this seal was terake, troubled waters, both literally and figuratively. Figuratively meaning mobs and seditions. But on that first one, and one that's often been emphasized, the loimos, disease epidemics, Sierra Leone has become the latest country to be put on alert over a potential outbreak of the deadly Ebola virus. Cases of the disease, which killed up to 90% of those infected, have also been registered in neighboring Guyana and Liberia. And I don't have video on that for you tonight, but that's the brief summary of the news on that for you, and we'll be watching that to bring you keep you updated on that one, especially since the fourth seal in disease epidemics is the last seal before the fifth seal. Let's put the chart back up just for a moment. The fifth seal being the seal that we're watching for to be the next major event in prophecy, as God's servant and apostle and candlestick for the Philadelphia era, the initial candlestick, said would be the next major event in in prophecy. The Great Tribulation, a time of World War III, a time when the emperor that becomes the head of the last head of the revived Holy Roman Empire is coronated out of Frankfurt, Germany, the place where most of the previous emperors, the heads of the Holy Roman Empire, were coronated, so there's little chance that that'll be changed, especially as we watch news and see how the monetary single currency that is shaping and correcting itself, headquarters out of Frankfurt, Germany, and we'll be keeping an eye on that for you. Friends, we're out of time for tonight, so I'm going to say thank you very much for joining us. God willing, and the creek don't rise. We'll be back again tomorrow night, Thursday night, for our regular edition of Nightcast, the current day's news related to the Bible and prophecy. Until next time, your host, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth, saying, so long, friends.
You have been watching Nightcast with Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth. Nightcast can be seen Sunday through Thursday nights here on COGTV.org. Tonight's program is also available anytime on demand in the COGTV.org video archive.